Hello, specialized insurance claims students. Well, so far in our class, we have covered different medical insurance programs, how to assign medical codes to diagnoses and procedures. In the past few weeks, we have talked about how to submit insurance claims, and we have even had practice filling out a few claim forms and viewing how these procedures are completed in a practice management software program such as Metasoft. We are now to the point of the class where hopefully our medical practice gets paid. In this chapter, we will cover processing payments, reviewing remittance advice documents, how we might go about appealing a decision from an insurance company, and how secondary claims are submitted if the patient has a secondary insurance plan. So once an insurance claim has been submitted to a payer, it goes through a process called claims adjudication. And this is just a fancy term that means that they judge the charges on the claim form to determine if they should be paid or not. And the claim goes through these steps shown on the slide, and we'll look at each one of these a little bit more in detail. So first of all, it goes through an initial processing. There's an automated review process that happens automatically. If necessary, it goes through a manual review. At that point, then a determination needs to be decided, and then hopefully we come to the payment step. So let's take a look at these a little bit more in detail. So the initial processing portion of claims adjudication is done either by data entry or by a scanning system. And so the initial processing just checks for basic patient and medical practice demographic information and checks to be sure that no basic pertinent information is missing, such as that the name and ID number are correct. Is there a diagnosis code that might be missing? Maybe we have the wrong sex codes for the patient. If so, the claims might be rejected with instructions for how the medical insurance specialist can go ahead and correct those. And these are the basic things that we want to make sure that we're always correct on when we submit a claim the first time, because we want to submit what we call clean claims. We don't want these really basic types of errors to hold up our claims processes, because that holds up our payment on our end. The next step in claims adjudication is an automated review, and this is where the payer's computer system checks all sorts of types of things. Is the patient actually eligible for benefits through this insurance program? Was the claim filed within the time limit, which is usually within 90 to 180 days of service? A claim needs to be submitted. If required, are valid pre-authorization and referral numbers provided on the claim? Are there duplicate dates of service? Billing for a service on the same date that's already been adjudicated. These are things that might flag it and might hold us up. Are there non-covered services that were billed? Do the codes link between the diagnosis and the services? We've talked about this many times. They need to make sense, right? Have surgical codes been unbundled? Or have the global periods been followed or not? So do you remember what these are? Remember a global period? That's for our surgeries or procedures that might involve the pre-surgery dates all the way through, let's say, a month or 2 months after the surgery. It includes the surgery and normal follow-up. That's a global period. So we wouldn't want to unbundle those. Medical review to confirm medical necessity at appropriate level. Is it right? Is the medical level that it's been coded at correct? Utilization review. This just means that are the hospital services appropriate? Someone takes a look at this. Are they coded appropriately at the right level? Are the days and services authorized consistent with the documentation? And concurrent care is sometimes a flag too, and this just means that patients receive extensive care from with two or more providers on the same date of service. That's what concurrent care means. So sometimes these things might flag out if we have some of these go through our automated system. If the automated review results in any kind of a problem, the claim is suspended and it is set aside for further review called manual review. And so here the claims examiners might ask for professional advice from a doctor or a nurse or someone who can check out and give some more information about the claim to find out what's going on. Specifically, like, if a service code is wrong, so it looks like it was done at the wrong type of a place, is it correct on the claim, or was there a problem when it was entered? Are the treatments logical? Are they appropriate? Are they coded at the right level? And were the services that were provided, were they accurate and necessary? So those are some of the things that they look at when they pull out a review for a manual review, and take a look at it to double check to see why something might have not gone through the automated review correctly. The next step in claims adjudication then is determination. So for each and every service line on a claim, so every procedure or service that is charged, every line is looked at and it's determined, are they going to pay it? Will it be denied? Or will it be reduced in level and down coded, so it would be paid a lower price than what was originally on the claim? So if everything checks out and the service is within the guidelines, the charge will be paid. If the charge is not reimbursable, it will be denied. And if it's determined that the service was coded too high for the diagnosis, a lower level code is assigned and paid, and that's called down coding. So here again, I can't stress enough how important it is that medical documentation in the record be very accurate and very specific so that we can back up what's on those claims. The last step of the claims adjudication process is getting paid, and payment is usually sent directly to an insurance company, usually through electronic transfers, and payment is automatically put into their account. A remittance advice or an explanation of benefits is sent to the practice, and usually a remittance advice is sent. This would be an electronic form that specifies each and every service line on a claim and what has been paid and why. An explanation of benefits is usually the older term for what we used to call the paper copy of each and every claim. So more than likely you will see remittance advices come across electronically more so than EOBs or explanation of benefits. And we're going to talk about these in a little bit more detail in the next few slides. This slide just indicates some of the duties that medical insurance specialists take care of once a claim has been submitted. They track a lot of things such as the turnaround time, and we usually want to make sure that our claims have been looked at and turned around within 30 to 60 days from submission. They look at aging reports, and we have looked at these in our medical administrative procedures class when we had Metasoft. If you remember that, if you were in the class a few semesters ago or maybe just a few weeks ago, we looked at this. Aging reports show how long our accounts have not been paid, and figure 13.1 gives us a good example of this. Take a look at that. Those are important reports because, of course, the longer our accounts have not been paid, our practice doesn't have money. So we have to make sure we're watching those types of things. And medical insurance specialists watch the claim status codes that are used and follow up on them if necessary. And of course, they do a lot of communicating with our payers. So make sure that you understand the correct terms that medical billers might use, the language of medicine there, and always make sure that you're polite and courteous, because it's always better to work with people who are happy in their jobs and are positive. People want to help you more, and you'll get better results if you are. So keep that in mind, and I do apologize for my dog barking in the background. So the remittance advice is just a summary of the payer's adjudication process and what they decided. And It includes information on what was charged, what the amount is allowed under the plan, what coinsurance the patient may be responsible for, if any, and it explains the amount paid for each service and the total amount paid to the provider. And the remittance advices are sent in batches of patients with a variety of dates. They are not individually sent for each patient or each patient's claim all together. It's not like a nice, neat little package that one claim gets put in and those charges are just as neat put back. It's a batch, and so it could be for a variety of patients and a variety of dates, and could be several pages long, just to give you an idea there. The medical insurance specialist then uses that remittance advice, or that RA, to verify and match up each specific code and the date, and determines to make sure that what we assumed was going to get paid actually was paid. So take a look at the RA shown on the page here on the slide. Take a look at that and notice the different sections of that remittance advice. There's the header information up on the top that just goes through basically who is it from. And then the middle part then, or that claim information area, is really where all those codes are put in, tells what was allowed, what was paid. If something wasn't paid the full amount, look at the different adjustment codes there. Why was it adjusted? Or maybe if it was denied, why was it denied? All of that is there. Of course, totals are there. Down at the bottom section then is a glossary that will help people to understand the different codes that might have been placed up in the claim information of that remittance advice. So they look kind of scary when you first look at it. It looks kind of overwhelming, but don't let it overwhelm you. Break it down into each section and look at each column and understand how they came up with that, and it won't be too overwhelming. So again, the remittance advice is definitely something that medical insurance specialists become very familiar with. Remittance advices contain a column for adjustments. So this would be when something would be paid for a different amount than what was billed, and it would explain why. Was the claim denied? Was it not paid at all? Was it downcoded or was given a reduced amount? So there are examples in our book of different claim adjustment reason codes. So take a look at those. And again, if you're starting that binder, that reference binder that I suggest you do, this would be a great table to put in that reference binder so you have it when you're on the job, because these are great quick checks on the different codes that are used and are referenced on the remittance advice. When a remittance advice comes across the desk of a medical insurance specialist, the next steps then are that he or she reviews that remittance advice. We compare all the billed codes against what we thought we were going to get paid and what we actually did get paid. We're going to look at those adjustment codes and make sure that they make sense. If so, then we're going to go ahead and post into our practice management program. And this is done in the format of a deposit as an electronic funds transfer. It's a deposit of money into our organization. So it's deposited into our organization, and then each patient account that has had a charge paid on would be adjusted. It would be posted there to either show that the charge was paid in full, or maybe there's some outstanding that the patient needs to, or sometimes the doctors just, if they're part of a plan that they agree to, that difference is just adjusted out and zeroed out. The medical insurance specialist also takes time to reconcile and double check the math, make sure that all the calculations are correct, and then they have to manage any denials. So if things were rejected or procedures weren't paid or things were downcoded, they need to look at those and decide why, and is it worth trying to go back and rebill or do some kind of ask for some kind of an adjustment, I guess, with those codes. So take a look at that in the book also, and notice that sometimes the next step might be to bill our patient if there's some outstanding amounts, if our plan allows it. We might write off the difference and not seek the difference too. So we might need to appeal it also if we feel like we're in the right and something was not done correctly. So those are the next steps once a remittance advice comes across the desk of a medical insurance specialist. Some patients have more than one insurance plan. Not all, but some do. And if that's the case, after the primary insurance remittance advice has come across our desk and we've verified everything, the next step, if there's any outstanding charges then, would be billed to the secondary insurance. Again, if that patient has another insurance plan. The provider to payer coordination of benefits model is followed, and sometimes the primary payers automatically coordinate with the secondary payers. So it kind of depends on the different programs involved, whether it's an automatic submittal to the secondary payer or if it's something that needs to be done through the provider's office. Note that the remittance advice on the page noted on the slide here, the very last line states claim information forwarded to, and then it has the Blue Cross Blue Shield. So that is an example where it automatically was sent to that secondary payer on the behalf of the patient and the provider. So this would be the next step if there's a secondary insurance. Chapter 13 covers step 8 of the medical billing cycle, and everything that we have learned up until this point has gotten us ready for this chapter, which really is the heart and soul of the medical insurance specialist duties. Getting those remittance advice across our desk, deciding if it's correct, and helping with any denials or appeals. That's really what we've been getting ready for our whole class. So I hope that you've enjoyed Chapter 13 and that it all feels like it's kind of coming together with regards to payments, looking at those remittance advices, how would you go about an appeal, and of course secondary claims. Thanks so much for joining me for this short presentation.